Dear friends, welcome to this week's virtual drasha. This week we have the incredible protege Parshas Vayigash, and the parsha contains the dramatic reunion of the family of Yaakov Avinu. After putting up the charade for so long, Yosef can't hold himself back, and he says, "Ani Yosef ha'od avichai." I am Yosef, is my father still alive? And after more than 2 decades of painful separation, the family is finally reunited. And each one of the reunifications had its own drama, right? The reunification with the brothers was one dynamic. Reunification of Yaakov with Yaakov was a different dynamic. But to me, the reunification, which seems just to almost contain so much emotionality, was the reunification, the reunion between Yosef and Binyamin. These 2 brothers, the sons of Rachel Imenu, the 2 boys without a mother, the 2 boys who had been separated for more than 2 decades, were finally reunited together. And amazingly enough, the Torah goes out of its way to really describe, I think like in palpable terms, the emotionality of this reunion. In Perek Memhei, Pasuk Yudal, chapter 45, verse 14, the Torah says, "Vayipol al tzavari Binyamin achi vayevch." Yosef fell on Binyamin's neck and he cried. "UBinyamin bacha al tzavarav," and Binyamin cried on Yosef's neck. And what's interesting about this is really twofold. Number one, why do you have to bring in the word neck? Right? Why not just go ahead? Yosef cried on Binyamin, Binyamin cried on Yosef. And beautiful. So much tears, so much pain, understandable. Furthermore, if you look at it, literally the pasuk says that Yosef fell on the necks, plural, of Binyamin, and Binyamin fell on the neck, singular, of Yosef. And Rashi HaKodesh explains so beautifully that the neck is a metaphor for the Beis HaMikdash and the Mishkan. And Rashi says as follows: "Vayipal tzavari Binyamin achiv al shnei mikdashos she'asidin lios bechelko shel Binyamin v'sof alicharif." Yosef falls on the necks, plural, of Binyamin, because remember the Beis Hamikdash ultimately again was situated in the chelik of Binyamin, at least partially in the chelik of Binyamin. So therefore, again, Yosef cries over the 2 Batei Mikdash, the first Beis Hamikdash, the second Beis Hamikdash, which will both be destroyed, which partially was in the tribal area of Binyamin. And what does it mean that Binyamin cried on Yosef's neck? Al Mishkan Shilo Sha'asid Lios Bechelko Shel Yosef V'sof Alicharif. And Binyamin cried on Binyamin's neck. This represented the Mishkan, which would be situated in the tribal areas of the sons of Yosef and would be destroyed. So incredible. So there's so many layers to these tears. So on a most basic level, the tears are flowing freely because brothers who have been separated for more than 20 years are finally together again. But Rashi HaKodesh understands that there's an additional layer of mourning. There's an additional layer of tragedy that's here. That Yosef sees prophetically the 2 temples, which will be in the tribal area of Binyamin, which will be destroyed, and he cries for them, hence the plural necks. And Binyamin sees the Mishkan, which will be in the tribal area of the sons of Yosef, that will be destroyed as well. So Yosef is crying for the destruction of the Batei Mikdash, the temples in Binyamin's area, and Binyamin is crying for the destruction of the Mishkan in the tribal area of Yosef. Incredible, overwhelming. Asks the Lubavitcher Rebbe, I don't understand. Why is it that Yosef is crying for Binyamin and Binyamin is crying for Yosef? In other words, I understand if essentially, it seems to be what's really happening over here is that Yosef and Binyamin understood that it would have been wonderful if this reunification was the end of their familial pain. But they also understood on a deeper national level that this was not the end of our pain. This was not the end of our suffering. So Yosef cries over the suffering of Binyamin, so to speak, and Binyamin cries over the suffering of Yosef. And asked the Rebbe, I don't understand. If the whole point over here is that this closure is not a complete closure, and there'll still be more pain and suffering, so let them both cry. Let Yosef cry for the Mishkan, which was going to be in his tribal area, and let Binyamin cry for the Batei Mikdash, for the temples that were going to be in his tribal area. Why is Yosef crying over Binyamin and Binyamin crying over Yosef? And the Rebbe says something absolutely amazing. The Rebbe says, sometimes in life you encounter another person and another person is in pain. And as much as I want to help, I can't do anything. Right? We encounter this all the time. There's someone who I love who's going through a difficult time in life. There's someone who I love who is having a challenge. There's someone who I love who's just having a tough go at it. And I would do anything to help. I would do anything to even take away the pain. I would do anything to be there for them. But at the end of the day, I can't. And therefore the Rebbe says sometimes the only thing you could give to another person is empathy. I'll cry with you. I'm going to be there with you. I'm going to give you a shoulder to cry on and you could cry on mine, or I'll cry on yours. I just want you to know, Imo anochi b'tzara. I am with you in your pain. I am with you in your difficulty. I can't fix it. I can't fix it. Again, sometimes in life you can fix other people's problems, but very often, I think more often, you can't. So what do I do for your problems? I'll cry. I'll cry over you. I'll cry for you. I'll empathize with you. But says the Rebbe, when it comes to your own challenges and it comes to your own problems, no, you're not allowed to sit there and cry. But rather you have to act. I have to figure out what can I do to rectify my circumstances. I cannot sit here feeling sorry for myself. I cannot sit here wallowing in the pain and wallowing in the sadness. But rather, I must take an actional approach. Even if I can't solve the problem, even if I can't totally fix the problem, even if I can't remove the problem, I have to figure out actionally, what can I do in this circumstances to somehow better my situation? For the pain of the other, which I cannot necessarily fix, for that I will cry. For that I will empathize. For that I will be there. But for my own stuff, for my own challenges, no. I cannot fulfill my obligation for crying over myself, being sad for myself, but rather, I have to take action. I have to figure out what to do. And says the Rebbe, that's the pshat. Yosef can't cry for himself because Yosef understood that for my own stuff, for that mishkan that's going to be in my tribal portion, I got to figure out what to do about that. I can't sit here and cry for myself. For Binyamin, my brother who's going to be in pain, I'll cry for him and with him. I can't fix his issues, but I can empathize with them. Binyamin doesn't sit there and cry over his own Batei Mikdash. Why? Because for his own Batei Mikdash, for his own issues, he's got to figure something out. For my brother Yosef, I'll cry, I'll empathize. And the Rebbe teaching us such a dual lesson. Number one, in terms of what it means to be there for the other. You know, there's halacha, the halacha really represents this idea. We see this like in Hilchos Avelos, right? The laws of mourning. Person goes to Menachem Avel. And you know, sometimes you go to pay a Shiva visit and it's awkward because the halacha is that you're really not supposed to speak until the Avel, until the mourner begins to speak. The mourner controls the dialogue. The mourner controls the process. And a lot of times, like, it's awkward for us, and you see this all the time. People, like, they make small talk, they bring up something, they just start asking questions. And meanwhile, the halacha is sensitizing us. Why is it that it's the mourner who has to begin the dialogue? Why is that? Because halacha is sensitizing us that when you go to be menachem, when you go to comfort a mourner, what's the avoda? Just show up. Just be there. Just be with the person in their time of loss. Just be with the person in their time of sadness. There's nothing you're going to say that's going to make it all better. There's nothing you're going to say that somehow is going to, if it's a tragic situation, to somehow make sense of it. You're not there to say anything. You're just there to be with them. Sometimes the greatest thing that we could do for each other is just show up. Is just be there. If my family knows that I'm there when they're struggling, I don't have the answers. Sometimes I feel like I don't have any of the answers. But I'm here. I'm here. Yes, you can cry on my shoulder. And yes, I'm going to cry along with you because yes, I'm going to feel your pain as if it was my own. I am here with you. Sometimes that's the most beautiful and incredible thing that we could do for each other. But that's what we do for each other. That's what I do for the other. When it comes to my own challenges, dear friends, how often does it happen that we face difficult circumstances in life and we become so overwhelmed, and we think that the avod is to feel sorry for ourselves, just to kind of wallow in it. That's not our avoda. When it comes to your own problems, the answer is not to cry. When it comes to your own problems, the answer is not to feel sorry for yourself. Now, granted, there's definitely a period of time when we all go through that, especially in overwhelming circumstances. For someone else's problems and challenges that I can't fix, I cry. For my own challenges and problems, even if I can't fix them or remove them, I must devise a strategy to deal with them. And the strategy is never crying. The strategy is never feeling sorry for myself. The strategy is never, woe is me. What's the strategy? I got to figure that out. And that's certainly going to depend on the different circumstances. And again, to be clear, there are certain problems and certain challenges and certain difficulties that we encounter that there's not a solution. But even when there's not a solution, there's always a strategy. Even when there's not an answer, there's always an approach. Even if I can't totally rectify the circumstances, there is always a mahalach. There's always a path forward. Cry, empathize, and feel for the other. And act. Direct your circumstances. Take the reins for your own circumstances and situations. And this is Lubavitcher Rebbe, is exactly what the Torah Kedosh is telling us by these two beautiful brothers. Yosef felt the pain of his brother and cried with him. Binyamin felt the pain of Yosef and cried with him. But Yosef did not cry over his circumstances, and Binyamin did not cry over his circumstances, because both of these holy brothers understood to cry for the other, to feel for the other, is the pinnacle, ultimately of achrayus, of responsibility for the other. When it comes to our own challenges and circumstances, crying is never enough. Crying is never the answer. We must have vision. We must have a plan. We must have a strategy. And we must be brave enough to figure out a path forward. Wishing everyone a good Erev Shabbos and a beautiful Shabbos Kodesh.